I'm going to give you the best advice that I would give myself as a new founder. I've been thinking about this for a while because some of the subscribers out there are asking me questions about what it takes to become a founder. What advice would I give? And I've come up with these 10 pieces of advice that I would want me to listen to when I was just starting out. Now, if we haven't met before, my name is Ed Kang. I'm a 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That's just a fancy way of saying I failed a bunch of times to your benefit because I use videos like this and my whole channel to try and help founders avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made during my serial founder career. It's not that you're not going to make mistakes, but I'm going to try to minimize the damage and help you avoid some of the pain and the heartache that I've gone through during all my startups. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com, and I've advised over 600 startups myself, and I've had thousands of startups come across my desk as part of our alumni at the Startups.com Accelerator Program. Speaking of which, if you joined us from Startups.com and you're watching this, thank you very much for being part of the community. While you're all here, if you can please like, comment, subscribe. If you're not subscribed already, your feedback is tremendously helpful. Thank you, and let's get into these 10 pieces of advice. The first thing that I would say is develop a growth versus fixed mindset. What's the difference? A growth mindset is when you think and you believe that things such as your talent, your intelligence, how effective you are, your performance overall can be developed. Where a fixed mindset says, no, I'm born this way, I'm stuck right here. Founders with a growth mindset will experience failure and they'll say, what am I learning from this? How can I grow? How can I adapt? How can I change? Where a fixed mindset might blame other people. That investor never paid attention to me. That investor never understood. Nobody ever taught me. My advisors are letting me down. The startups community is letting me down. That's what fixed mindset individuals, founders, tend to think. The first step in developing a growth mindset is to challenge your own beliefs and start to challenge when you might be entering into a fixed mindset. If you ever start to blame external circumstances for your success, then you know. Maybe it's time to challenge that fixed mindset and say, no, hang on a sec. I can learn, I can grow. Everything I need is within me, including the ability to create my own opportunities. Now, I'm not discounting the fact that some founders watching this are born into situations or they might be located where there's not as much of a startup ecosystem and opportunity. But that doesn't matter. You didn't get to choose where you started off in life. Let me repeat this again. I'm not discounting that some individuals are in disadvantaged situations, but it's not uncommon for individuals that come from more disadvantaged positions. They're underestimated, underrepresented, and underserved to have an even greater growth mindset because that's typically what it will take. But guess what? Once you get there, your growth mindset comes with you and it will affect success in every area of your startup. And I see this all the time. Individuals who haven't had to struggle as much end up struggling a little more to reach that pinnacle of success that they know they're capable of. Whereas individuals who come through difficult circumstances tend to be more resilient, especially during tough economic times or facing rejection from customers and investors. That growth mindset serves them so well, and they build startups that last for a very long time. Surveys and data of unicorn founders have proven this. They tend to be individuals with a stronger growth mindset than those with a fixed mindset. So understand and be aware of the difference and start there. The second piece of advice is learn to hack, then code. Founders must be hackers because you need to be able to create technical solutions to problems that you see. But hacking is where you take a system and you bend it to your will and you make it do things that it might not be intended to from the beginning. To give you an example, my first startup was in digital animation. This was when animation had just gone 3D and the internet was just starting to be a thing. And we were obsessed with trying to get animation on the internet, which required a whole bunch of different thought processes and technical requirements. It was not as easy as it is today, just uploading something to YouTube or animating with different programs. We had to come up with clever ways to make something look 3D when it wasn't because we didn't have the bandwidth and the internet wasn't strong enough to be able to process animation on the screen. So we hacked away at all the tools, all the video tools, and we made the video software do things that nobody expected to, and we got a lot of attention, which eventually led to more opportunities, and then my company was acquired. You can learn today to hack pretty much anything. If you can go on OpenAI and you can start playing around with custom GPTs and you start bending custom GPTs to your will to do things that normal people can't do it just by accessing the tools, then you are a hacker. There are so many platforms out there that are no code and low code right out of the box, can be white labeled, that you can start to hack away. And then I would suggest that you learn to code. That's something that I regret in my life. I regret not learning to code. But what I can do is I can hack away. I can take off the shelf, right out of the box software and make it do things that other people think, no, you can't do it. And I can at least cobble things together for a prototype to make it look like I've got something of a startup starting to happen, and I can get validation from it, get that initial traction. That's my MVP. So whenever you get a chance, tinker away with all these tools out there. The more you play with AI, the better equipped you will be to actually build something in AI in the future. Whether you learn to code AI or not, learn to hack, then code. My third piece of advice is work a day job and develop character and curiosity. I see a lot of founders, especially young ones, think that they're just going to go right away into startup career and then hit the ball right out of the park and score a home run. It just doesn't work that way. Startups require tremendous amounts of experience, domain expertise, and you have to develop the character and the curiosity to stay involved. The character you develop while working a job, not only does it help you understand the value of time, working with a team, working with customers, but also you are going to be able to stick through and have that resilience because every startup gets really tough. So you might as well spend your time while you're learning to hack, while you're learning to code, working a job. You'll develop the character, but also develop curiosity. Start to become curious about how business works. One of my mentors told me, Ed, you have to learn the business of business. And I'm so curious. When I see a business successful, I look at that business model. When I see another founder successful, I get curious of what they did, how they got started. And when there's new innovations or advancements in other fields other than the one that I'm working in, I'm curious about that as well. Because you never know when you can pull principles from an adjacent field into what you are doing. Curiosity is so important for innovation because if you're reading the same blogs, reading the same articles, listening to the same podcast, and talking to the same group of people, you're just going to come up with solutions that look like everybody else's. But if you can be curious about the way the rest of the world works, there are so many principles that can be pulled in that are parallel to what you are doing that give you an innovative edge. The fourth is pretty straightforward. Minimize personal burn and maximize runway. Learn to do a lot of things with very little resources. The founder that can create exceptional results from very little, especially when it comes to finances, is always going to be trusted more with investors if you need investors in the first place. Learn the discipline of how money works. Minimize your personal burn. Make your world as lean as possible. There's an advantage of working out of your garage, working in your parents' basement. Your burn is so low, and that's going to serve you well later when you have to minimize the burn and you have to manage the runway of your startup. Now, remember, I told you you're working your job, right? That's going to maximize your runway even further. Startups do not run out of money. The founders run out of money. And if you start learning those disciplines early, you're going to be in a better situation because I have founders that tell me they have to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because of debt, because of mortgages, because of all the commitments that they have. And that literally hamstrings their startup. They start in the hole and they can't get out of it without getting rescued by investors. If you can be trusted with a little amount of resources, eventually you will be trusted with a lot of resources. Investors love lean and mean founders like you. The fourth lesson is learn to sell. Learn to sell. I don't care what it takes. Go get a job, read some books, go work in a telemarketing job, go door to door, try to sell insurance, learn to sell. This is going to help you get over that sales reluctance. There's a psychological block that kills a lot of startups. What happens is founders are used to being technical and they're afraid of selling. So what they do is they just start building product because that's fun, that's safe, it's comfortable, they have confidence doing that. But little do they know, the more they just sit in their bubble, their startup starts to grow and they start thinking, this is an amazing idea. And you fall into confirmation bias without going to a customer and saying, what do you think? And dealing with that rejection. There's no better source of feedback than after you tell the customer the price as you're trying to sell them to get them to use your solution. And that feedback might discourage you, might go through some psychological ups and downs, but you're going to develop that resilience and you'll take that feedback and put it in your product so that you build something that other customers love to use, and they'll tell other customers about it as well. Number 6, get obsessed with problems, not money and or your solution. The best founders building the best startups are obsessed with solving problems for customers. They get right in there and saying, how can I solve this problem for you? And the more painful the pain, the more you get in there and the more obsession you have. It is literally an obsession with the problem, the better off your solution is going to be. But if you get obsessed with money, then you're going to be doing it for the wrong motivation. I know there's an allure to startups because we look at those fantastic exits and all those articles that are written about startups that go public and founders that become billionaires, but they didn't start that way. If you're thinking about starting a startup, becoming a founder because of the money, that is the worst motivation ever. You're not going to get there. It is way too hard. I can think of about 100 different ways to make better money, make more money, and make it easier than being in a startup. Trust me, I know. But the other obsession that tends to undermine founders is when they become obsessed with their solution. In their mind, their solution is what everybody needs. Everybody should be thankful that I've created this solution in the world without an obsession with the problem. The result is you end up creating a solution, looking for a problem, and nobody's going to care because customers pay to have problems solved. Investors invest to have customer problems solved. And if you're so busy building your solution that you never consider to ask customers their opinion about their problem and to learn how to solve that problem better, then you're going to have a very difficult time. If you get this right and you're obsessed with the problem, you're going to have customers lining up saying, thank you so much, especially if it's an underserved problem or underrepresented group of people who have that problem and it's very painful that nobody wants to actually touch. You are going to have users banging down your door saying, thank God for you. And if you get the solution right, it's just going to create product market fit. You'll have this exponential growth. It's going to work out fantastic for you. Get obsessed with the problem. Don't get obsessed with the money and or your solution. Number 7 is something I learned way too late. Get people to pay you to fix problems, then focus on investors. In fact, this is something that I wish I made common sense, common practice, because the second SaaS that I sold, which was an employee analytics and engagement platform, I got an initial customer to pay me before I even built it. They told me the problem and I said, how much would you pay for the solution? They made a price and I went out and I said, I can do it for this. And then later on, I found another client that became my number one customer and they paid me enough while I was doing things manually. It's something I did as a service that I was able to get enough money to hire a dev team to actually build the software. But guess what happened? By that time, I understood the problem. I understood what it meant to deliver the solution. So I knew exactly what I needed to code. I wasn't the type of founder that just assumed in my head that people would love my solution. I actually was selling it first, and that gave me all the information that I needed. And as I continued to sell it, I got continual feedback, and I was able to do continual improvement on the product. And eventually, it got to the point where we grew so much that the number one customer said to me, hey, how about we just buy your startup? So if you're out there and as a founder and you come up with an idea and you're like, oh, this could be a solution, try to go sell it first. If you can do that properly, which means you're going to have to go through idea validation, customer discovery, be able to present your unique value proposition, and to be able to sell, well, you might find that customer that not only says, hey, I'll pay you to solve it, but you know what? Let me invest because this solution doesn't exist. And if I need the help, 1,000 other people are probably going to need the help. Millions of other customers could be lining up. They'll see the investment opportunity. Then you can start thinking about investors. Because if you show them the track record of how, with no money whatsoever, you convince someone to pay you upfront for a solution that didn't exist yet because you were able to articulate their problem and give them a solution that they wanted really badly, guess what? That investor is going to be extremely impressed. You are an exceptional and formidable founder. The last 3 are a little more philosophical. Number 8 is learn how your heroes got started, not where they ended. One of the mistakes that I see is that founders look at their heroes like Jack Ma or Elon Musk or Sam Altman, and they look and say, man, I wish I could be where they ended, where they are right now. It's kind of like watching a baseball game or any professional sport and looking at that professional athlete that is literally in the top 1% of everybody does that sport and saying, man, I have to become like that. They never started that way. You're not looking at the hours, the grueling grind that each of those athletes went through to hone their bodies, hone their craft so they could compete at such a high level. It's the same thing with founders. What you want to be is more curious about how they got started. How did they learn? What were the basics? What was the foundation? And start to replicate that because that's something you can do as an early founder. If you're too busy getting googly-eyed and in awe about the yachts and the private jets and the lifestyle, you're never going to learn what it takes to actually get there. And that's the reason biographies are so fascinating to me. When I can hear a founder story, I'll ask questions like, how did you get started? What were the challenges that you had to overcome right in the beginning? Learn to ask those questions. And don't worry about where they are now. Remember, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Number 9 is find the right friends, peers, which might be co-founders, mentors, and then advisors, last. Let's break this down. In the beginning, finding friends is so important. You want to have friends not only to talk about your startup ideas with and get validation, but you need to have that social capacity. You need to have that emotional battery that you're going to get from a friendship circle that's going to help you. Now, here's the reality. As you start to grow, you're going to lose friends, because if you're growing, you will be losing those friends, because you'll be growing in your personal development, your character, your skill. You'll be moving into new circles, new social echelons. As you start to achieve success, your friends are naturally going to start to change. The friends that I had in school are not the friends that I had in college, that are not the friends that I had today, because we just can't relate to each other. They've gone in different paths of their lives. At the same time, some of them are in a fixed mindset. I've got a growth mindset, and I don't hang out with people who have a fixed mindset. And that's the reason they say you're the average of the 10 people you hang around with the most. You want to get a good circle of friends, but no, that's eventually going to shift to peers. These are other founders or individuals who are going to support you, and they can become your co-founders. These are the types of people who are obsessed with solving problems just like you. And if you stay up late at night at a bar and you're just talking about the problem and figuring out all the ways to solve it, they could be great co-founders. That's what I love about the startups.com community, is because founders are helping other founders. They look each other in the eye and they say, I get it. I'm in the exact same situation that you are. And it's so encouraging. It's comforting. It feels safe. And it's so important to continue developing that emotional capacity that you started off with your friends, eventually needs to come from peers. Then you want to find mentors, and mentors are different than advisors. Mentors are individuals that you want to become like in some form or another. Maybe they got a great family life. Maybe they're great at leading a business, a fantastic CEO. Maybe they're accomplished in areas that you want to be a part of and that you see as far as your own personal development. So mentors don't have to be working in startups. I have a lot of mentors in academia, for example, and I love the way they process theories. I love the way they learn. I love the way they teach, and I want to become just like them. These days, a lot of my mentors have been married a long time, because one of my personal missions is to be a hero to my family. Doesn't matter what's happening in my startups. I want to be successful like everybody else, but I want to make sure that I'm a hero to my family. And that's the reason I get involved with individuals who mentor in different communities, who mentor at church, who mentor in their businesses, mentor at school. I want to hang out with those individuals because it's good for me. Remember, I've got my peers, and now I want my mentors. And once you get to that next level, then you can bring on advisors. A lot of advisors act like mentors, but advisors teach you, and they step off the field when you have to play the sport. So it's like a coach. The coach might have been an athlete in the past, but the coach can't perform as the athlete. The coach makes the athlete the hero. The coach is the guide. You are Luke Skywalker. I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi. I teach you how to do what you need to get done as a founder, and then I step away and let you do it. That's what great advisors do. Advisors can help you become a professional founder, or later on, when you are maxed out in your professional skills, advisors can point out things that you're not seeing, point out your blind spots, because they have a vantage point that you do not have. But remember, you are the star performer. You are the superstar in your startup. You are the founder. Advisors are just watching you. They're your cheerleaders. They can mentor you if that's applicable, but they're watching you, and they're making sure that they see things that you don't and advise you along the way, because they might have experience in it, or they just might be a really good friend that understands your blind spots and make sure you are accountable, and they confront you with maybe some uncomfortable truths. That's what the best advisors do. But let me assure you, through all my experience advising hundreds of founders and startups, the founders that have a foundation of friendships, peers, mentors, always make the best advisees. They are the easiest to advise because they have that experience with all those different social circles, being coached, getting feedback, being generous, sharing relationships, managing relationships, conflict. They make the best advisees, the founders. I love advising those types of founders. Makes my job so much easier and allows me to focus on what I do best, looking at the startup and making sure we're on the right track rather than dealing with all the other stuff that you didn't get in all those other levels. So make sure that you find the right friends, and that moves to peers, which could be co-founders. Then you get mentors, and then you want to add advisors. And the last piece of advice is my personal investment thesis, something called joy effects. You're going to see this all over if you're hanging out with me in this channel. I say, find your joy. Number 10, find your joy. What is joy? Joy is different than just feeling extremely happy. Some people define joy as a deep sense of pleasure or satisfaction. That is not it. I can assure you that does not happen all the time in startups. Startups are a gruel. It's like getting punched in the face 10 times every single day, and if you get up, you live to fight another day. That's what startup is like. It is not pleasurable. It is not enjoyable. You are not happy all the time. Joy is the sense that you are glad to be with people in strength, but especially weakness. Let me repeat that. Joy is the sense that you are glad to be with certain types of people in strength, but especially weakness. I have joy with my wife. I can go to her in my strength and celebrate. I did an amazing job in startups today. I did an amazing job as an advisor. I'm amazing, and she will celebrate with me. At the same time, I can put my head in her lap and I can say, you know what? I suck. I'm going to fail. I'm going to take our family into bankruptcy. We're going to lose everything. I am a terrible founder and an even worse advisor. And she just says, there. Thank you for sharing. And that's the benefit of individuals who give you joy. You're glad to be with them. They are not jumping down your throats and trying to fix your life. Nothing kills joy faster than unsolicited advice in an attempt to fix, heal, convert, teach, and direct you. And you want to find the individuals who bring you joy, that you are glad that you are with them in your strength, especially weakness. Because while you're working on your startup, you will have moments of strength that you need to celebrate. You have to celebrate the small wins. That's how you build culture. That's how success creates more success. But you also have to be able to be in community and get that support in weakness. A lot of founders, what they do in weakness, they experience shame and they go and hide. And if you're a young founder out there, if you are young, like I'm talking 16 years old, 17 years old, you're not going to understand this yet. Hopefully you've got parents that you can experience this joy with. You got friends that you can experience joy with. But as you grow older, trust me, it's easier to isolate yourself and it's easier to get trapped in those spirals of shame, that narrative that happens in your head. And you start feeling guilty that you can't talk to everybody else, or you start feeling resentful and bitter. And then you swirl down into a bottomless pit where there's no joy, and that affects your performance in your startup. When you have no source of joy in your life, you will not enjoy your startup. So if you're just starting out, learn to find joy now, especially as you do the rest of the list, 1 through 9, and you will be just fine. There's my list. Did I miss anything? Do you have any other questions? Leave a comment. I would appreciate it. Thanks for checking this out. I put some other videos on the screen that you might want to check out as well. I appreciate all the support. Once again, these are the 10 pieces of advice, the best advice that I could come up with for new founders. I will see you in the next video.